Hi everyone, it's another episode of Under the Radar, Over the Moon. We're here to talk to you about some cool books that are coming out in a few months from now, so we'll get right to it. I'm Virginia Stanley, and this is...
Hi everyone, it's Amanda Roundtree.
That's...
Chris Connolly. Hey, good to see you.
Hey-o. So we'll get right to it. The first one I'm going to talk about is one that you've probably heard a lot about already. It's called The Woman in the Window by A.J. Fenn, and it's amazing. It's a debut psychological thriller. Honestly, if you haven't heard about this book by now, I don't know where you've been, because we've been talking about this since we were 7 years old. So it's about this woman who's an agoraphobe. She's in her New York City apartment, and she just cannot make herself go outside. Something's happened to her, and she's paralyzed, really. She can't, not physically paralyzed, but emotionally paralyzed, and she cannot leave her house. So she looks out the window, and she just watches life go by. And a new family moves in across the way, and she sees something, and she's not quite sure what she's seen, but she's pretty sure she's seen something that she shouldn't have seen, something bad she thinks has happened. But she's such an untrustworthy character that you're not really sure if you can trust her or not. You're not sure if you can trust yourself when you're reading it. You don't know what's going on. I can tell you that she drinks a lot of red wine throughout this book, and she watches a lot of movies. So we thought we would double dip in our book promotions here and pour a little Magpie Malbec for our recent book, Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz, which was a #1 library reads on the June list. So, Chris, you're going to do the honors?
I'd love to. Amanda?
There you go.
2 fingers, 3.
Be gentle.
Put a couple fistfuls in that one for me. This is going on sale January 2nd, and this is the little teaser in the beginning. It isn't paranoia if it's really happening. So this has been sold into 36 territories. The movie is going to be produced by Scott Rudin. It's going to be written by Tracy Letts, who wrote many things, including August Osage County, which was amazing. So this is really, really exciting. The raves have come in from librarians and authors and booksellers. It's gotten a starred review from Library Journal, who says Finn's debut lives up to the hype, a riveting and mature first novel that stands out in a crowded genre. Louise Penny says a twisted odyssey inside one woman's mind, her illusions, delusions, reality. It left my own mind reeling and my heart pounding in an absolutely gripping thriller. Librarian Jennifer Dayton from Darien Library says this is a smart, literate thriller that will leave you reeling. I cannot say enough about this. If you go to Edelweiss, you can see this really cool interview with A.J. Finn, the author, and Joe Hill. Very cool. So very, very smart. Can't say enough about it. I think there's departmental love. I know there's departmental love for this book. We absolutely love this book. You don't see this coming. It's great, right?
It's incredible.
I feel like we all took this home one weekend and then came back on a Monday and we're just raving about it like crazy. It's really going to grab you and you won't be able to stop reading it until you're finished it. And there's so many different twists and turns and secrets that we were all comparing if we'd figure them out, who guessed what. It's just unforgettable and you would not be able to put it down.
And so many movie references. It's so cool. Hitchcock, just old black and white mysteries, thrillers. So if you're a cinephile, it's for you.
And speaking of, here's to this book, here's to September, here's to all of you librarians. We hope you enjoy this book. Really, truly, if you haven't read it, go to Edelweiss, ask us for a galley. You're going to love this thing. Cheers.
So I'm going to be talking about 2 mountain books today, the first of which is another thriller. We're going to be hitting you with thrillers initially here
absolutely.
Today, so which we all love. So this is Beneath the Mountain by Luca D'Andrea. He's an Italian author, so this has already come out in Italy to rapturous acclaim, and it's going to be a big deal. We pushed it back to January because we figured this, at HarperCollins, that this is a book that's going to be big, and it's already going to be released in over 30 languages, so it's a huge book. And the basic premise is it's so wrapped up in place, and in this case, it takes place in this tiny little village in Italy, very isolated, but it's under the shadow of the Dolomites. And it's, if you ever look up this region, it's Alto Adige, and I looked up how to pronounce that, so I think I nailed it, hopefully.
Very impressed.
It's this incredibly scenic, green, kind of pasture, rural area, but in the background, as you can maybe see, are these sharp, jutting mountains that are just so ominous, and it just such a strong sense of place. And the story goes, a documentary filmmaker moves with his wife to this small town she grew up in, under the shadows, again, of the Dolomites. And he wants to do a documentary about these mountain rescue workers who go in their tiny little helicopter and rescue people who get lost in these mountains. But something goes horribly awry, and he almost loses his life, and he's scarred deeply. And the only thing that can pull him out of this depression is his daughter. That is until he finds a very interesting story not often talked about in this little village. 3 students were found 20 years back, brutally murdered. Their body parts were strewn all over the place, and no one really talks about it. It was just a stroke of luck that he found out about it, and he thinks this is the next story he wants to pursue. But in this tiny village where everyone knows everyone and the secrets are kept with amongst just a select few, people aren't eager for him to find out the truth behind it. And again, I can't stress enough, the mountains are like a character in and of themselves. There's just such mystery and menace wrapped up in behind the scenes of this very scenic, seemingly ideal little town. So I really, really loved this book. Again, here's the jacket. For Comps After the Crash by Michael Boosie, and then The Forgotten Girls by Sarah Bladel. Loved it so much. This is coming in January. That's Beneath the Mountain.
I'm going to continue our thriller theme that we have going on today with If You Knew Her by Emily Elgar. This is a debut thriller that is told from multiple points of view, that starts off with this kind of horrible accident and then blows up from there. This young woman is brought into a hospital after a hit and run, and she is in a coma, like they're completely unresponsive. And we also follow one of the nurses in the hospital who sort of figures out this secret that this young woman has been keeping from everybody around her, her husband, her family, all of her friends, and she figures it out. And then we have this other character who is also a patient in the ward with this young woman, and he's trying to figure out what's going on, but he is also in a coma, which is kind of crazy, but he actually has what's called locked-in syndrome, where like from the outside it completely appears like he's in a coma, he's totally unresponsive, he can't move his eyeballs or anything, but he is completely aware of everything that is going on around him. He can hear if someone opens his eyes for him, he can see, so he's still there, and he hears everything that goes on. And he is seeing and hearing things that people do not want him to see or hear. And so his point of view, I think, really ratchets up the suspense in this book. And it is so well done. There are so many secrets. And it's really, I think, a great human story, too, because you've got all of these different characters revealing their fears and their loves and their hopes. Just a great kind of meld with the psychological suspense from a new voice that I think will be great for fans of Jillian McMillan, J.P. Delaney, or Ruth Ware. So that is If You Knew Her by Emily Elgar.
The next book I'm going to talk about is This Could Hurt by Jillian Medoff. This goes on sale in January. This is very powerful, very funny, very illuminating. This is Jillian's 4th novel. She wrote Hunger Point and I Couldn't Love You More. But this is a departure for her. Those were sort of family novels, and this is more of this is a workplace novel. It's about these 5 characters who work in this HR department in this company, and it's right after the crash of 2008, the financial collapse. And so it's all about how this place is starting to fall apart a little bit, and how they all it's a great sort of kind of like a slice of humanity in the workplace. We all have our a lot of us are defined by our jobs, and by the people who we work with. And so that's pretty much what this is. Everybody who's watching this has a similar experience. If you work in any kind of even if you volunteer at a place, it doesn't necessarily have to be a job. You have interpersonal relationships and how you all relate to each other. And that's pretty much what this book is about. You meet the woman is the chief of HR at this consumer research group, and her name is Rosa Guerrero, and she sort of came from nothing, and she really built herself up to this great position in the company, but she's like in her 60s now, like sort of her best, most vital years are behind her, but and something happens to her. I don't want to give too much away, but something happens to her, so you see how these other people who have come to rely on her and trust her react to what is happening and how things are unfolding. I mean, I know I'm being vague, but I don't want to give away too much. All you really need to know is that this is a real, very authentic look at the working life and how people relate to each other. And the author herself knows her stuff because she is in management consulting. So she advises senior leaders and HR executives on how to communicate effectively with employees and business managers during periods of change, like mergers and things like that. So she really knows what she's talking about. But she's also written these other books about family. So she has these great way of really getting authentic language and you know, she has a great ear for how people would truly relate to each other. That's quite believable. I really liked it very much. It's funny. It's insightful. It was also shortlisted for the Lead Read program. So Harper has this Lead Read program where once a season we pick a book that everybody's crazy about. And this was a contender, a strong contender. That's This Could Hurt by Jillian Medoff. 2 thumbs up. Love it. That's all I got. Who's going next now?
So, Hart Spring Mountain by Robin MacArthur. She wrote a short story collection in 2016, Half Wild, which also took place, as does this novel, in Vermont. A striking sense of place. And in this case, it's a literary novel, very women-centric, and it follows basically 3 generations of women who are bound to this Hart Spring Mountain, which is this kind of isolated mountain in rural Vermont that has been within this family since the 1800s. Specifically, we follow Vale, who is a young woman living in Louisiana at this point. She's a dancer of the exotic variety, and she's not speaking with her mother, who is a woman who's had numerous drug and behavioral issues throughout her life. But Vale receives a call that her mother, in the midst of Tropical Storm Irene, she disappeared, and Tropical Storm Irene is ravaging Vermont, and no one knows if Vale's mother is alive or dead, but Vale travels back to Hart Spring Mountain to get to the bottom of what happened to her mother. She just has a feeling she's alive, and she's going to stop at nothing to find out what happened to her. And again, it bounces between these generations of women, my favorite of which is Vale's grandmother, who was this kind of hermit living on Hart Spring Mountain. She has a pet owl she rescued, so she walked around with this pet owl on her shoulder all the time. And she's very close to the land. But all the voices are very unique and engaging, and it's just this place, this kind of isolated community where there's poverty and people are kind of escaping to this place because they don't fit into, the society at large. Vale is going to discover that this mountain and her heritage is far more complex than she could have ever imagined while she's searching for her mother. It's a beautiful novel. I think I have a good quote from Alexis M. Smith, who wrote Marrow Island. Traveling back and forth in time, Robin MacArthur renders both the Vermont landscape and Vale's family tree with poetic precision and gutting realism. I fell in love with these women and their mountain, and I did too. You just feel so at home and engaged by this setting. I loved this novel, so this is great. Here's the jacket one more time for fans of The Children's Crusade by Ann Packer and Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. So please do check it out. It comes out in January.
So I'm going to end this episode how we started with another thriller. This is The Other Mother by Carol Goodman, the author of The Lake of Dead Languages, which was really awesome a while back. This new one follows a woman named Daphne who has recently had a daughter. She's only a couple months old. Her name's Chloe. And Daphne was diagnosed with postpartum mood disorder. And so she has all of these sort of intrusive thoughts and just is going down this horrible downward spiral until she meets a new friend who also has a daughter named Chloe. And this new friend is everything she isn't, pretty much. But the more that they hang out, the more their lives start to sort of mirror each other in unexpected ways. The narrative jumps from the beginning of their friendship to a time when Daphne has run away with her daughter to start sort of a new life. She's gotten a new job, and all of this is more connected than you're gonna first believe. It's just so incredibly twisty. You never know what is going on in this woman's head. You can't really, can you trust her? Can't you trust herself or anything that she sees or hears? Reminded me a lot of the main character in The Woman in the Window. So they've both got this great unreliable narrator thing going on that you just have to figure out what is actually going on. You'll just have to read to find out. This is, I think, like I said, a great mashup of unreliable narrator, unsteady marriage, and female friendships in this excellent thriller that is The Other Mother by Carol Goodman.
Man, you guys gotta dive in. This is some diveable books going on here. We hope you love them as much as we all do. And that's September, yes?
Yeah.
September.
All right. Get back to school, kids.
Ha ha.
Ha ha.